Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Prime Minister responds to protesters who called for his resignation.
Political leaders show up to hear the cries of protesters.
A company ran by the Foxhill MP has been kicked out of this building. We'll tell you why straight ahead.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. What started out as a peaceful march from Bahamas Power and Light headquarters this morning quickly escalated into a heated protest outside the House of Assembly, down to the Sir Sidney Poitier Bridge, and back to Parliament Square. Hundreds of frustrated BPL customers protested high electricity bills and the increasingly high cost of living, going as far as pushing down barricades and clashing with police officers. Chanting, "Menace got to go," hundreds of protesters dressed in colors of the national flag stormed Bay Street with placards that read, "BPL robbing us, no weapon, no mask."
All of my pension money is going on BPL. So what am I supposed to eat? My husband dead. I ain't got no money to buy no food because all the money going to BPL.
We're here basically because of the light bill and the so many of the things that's going on in our country. Injustice in our country. At
one point, protesters formed a human chain as they sang the national anthem, and the placards were as creative as they come. I see you have a hog here.
A hog, because these are the way they pricing these things, they're holding up all your resources. Sometimes 60% of your income going to pay BSC. You're trying to pay rent. If you try to move in an apartment now, you need about $3,000. In some places, that's a down payment for a house.
I see legs at the bottom of the hog as well.
That's the people trying to carry the heavy weight of BSC.
Let me tell you something. When the UBP was in power, it used to be the white on that side keeping the black out. Now, the UBP back in power.
Organizers say they've written a list of demands, like do away with the Oban Energies Agreement, which they intend to submit to the government. Maria Daxon was one of them. She says they're giving government 10 days to respond.
Only a select set of people are being benefited from everything this F&M government did since they went to Parliament. Nothing they did benefit the massive of Bahamian people. The third thing we want this government to do, end the plans to join the WTO.
But right now, I know one thing, I'm not here to come here and baby those people in that House of Assembly. They're my slaves. They're working for me. I'm paying them. That's right. I'm not here to baby them up.
Listen to me. You see you want 2,000 or 3,000, see you don't know where the world is. Listen to me, I can tell Dr. Minister away on this phone this morning.
And if we say that the government can't run a business, they don't have no reason or no business running us. Because this is all we have. I've been here a whole week waiting on this protest. And if this doesn't happen, if we don't have our demands met, we're going to be back.
For some of these protesters, this wasn't about politics, like this man who said he's been rocking with Doc. But the Haymans have become too passive.
So you got to storm and then do what you got to do, all right? And I'm not coming on no more march unless it's a serious march. The next march I come on, it going to be a beautiful march. It ain't going to be no soft march. Because I can incite the people to do what they have to do. And I say that.
What's your name, sir?
Levan Barnes, start attention.
We are against the high light bill of BC. We're against foreign interest taking over. We're against putting Bahamian down. We stand united out here today. F&M, PFB, Bahamians on the whole, everybody.
We're so used to the government just doing and whatever, and we complain. And as you can see, there's not really that many people here to even make a stand.
Eventually, the protest moved to the foot of Sir Sidney Poitier Bridge, where officers dressed in riot gear blocked the entrance from protesters. One woman was arrested. We spoke with her sister.
They grab her, throw on the same white car here. So when I saw it, I said, it's my sister. She had a key and a phone in her hand. Now apparently nobody could find the key with the money in it. They saying they ain't move it, but if 4 officers on 1 person, someone have to yuck the key with the money in there.
Any idea why they arrested your sister?
No idea. Everybody came here and blocked off the bridge.
Well, as the House of Assembly's morning session ended and members of Parliament exited the lower chamber, protesters were still fired up and chased Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis to Cabinet Office. Jasmine Brown has that angle.
Those protesters did not hold back as the Prime Minister exited the House of Assembly today as he made his way toward the Cabinet Office under heavy police guard. Moments before, protesters shouted their displeasure with the Prime Minister. He spoke with the media, saying the Bahamas is a democratic country.
Individuals are within their legal right to demonstrate. That's good about democracy.
You think this is an indictment on your leadership?
That's good about democracy.
Those protesters spent much of the morning slamming his government's performance in office over the last 18 months as they chanted, "Minnis gotta go," so loudly that they could be heard clearly inside the House of Assembly as ministers debated legislation. At one point, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who had just returned to his seat after participating in the protest, began watching the protest on his cell phone, which began playing loudly as the Prime Minister was contributing to the debate. That prompted the PM to give this remark.
You're texting your people, right? Leave that mark outside.
But outside the House, the Prime Minister seemed unfazed by their calls for his resignation. When reminded of the role he played in several massive protests while he was in opposition against the then Christie administration, which was eventually ousted, Minnis insisted he was not worried.
Are you worried? No, I'm not worried. Individuals has a right. The Constitution allows them to demonstrate. That's freedom of movement and freedom of speech.
The Prime Minister, who tabled amendments to the value-added tax bill in the House of Assembly, also addressed concerns expressed by protesters who decried the high cost of electricity. That amendment allows the VAT exemption ceiling on BPL bills to increase to $300, and it comes as energy costs continue to soar.
We understand that there are some people having challenges with light bills. We're cognizant of that, and we will do whatever we can to try and relieve their pain and their stress. That's what a good government does.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Well, while several members of Parliament ventured outside the House to hear protesters' concerns, Free National Movement MP Frederick McAlpine was part of the pack as protesters made their way to Parliament Square. Julian Gray has that.
That's right, Kyle. As protesters made their demands in front of the House of Assembly today, a number of political leaders, both former and current, showed up to hear the cries of the people.
Mixed in with the marchers was Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who was at the front of the march when protesters stormed Rawson Square. He had a brief clash with officers when he and protesters broke through the barricades. When asked about the incident, McAlpine said he was simply trying to get to Parliament.
I didn't go through the barricade. I'm a parliamentarian, and I have a right to come through. And if those come behind me, that's fine. This is their house. They have a right also. We never did this. This was not done when the We March marched, and my leader was a part of that march. This didn't happen. We didn't have all these barricades. So you can't talk about it being the people's time, and then when it's your time for the people to talk to you, you don't want to listen to them.
Asked why he was out in the streets with protesters, the FNM Member of Parliament said this.
After 2 years, for us to be at this level, I've never seen this degree of anger and frustration from a people so quick with a government. Something is drastically wrong. And practically every government organization is striking or attempting to strike or talking about striking. That is bad. I often see this 4 years into election. It's not not even been 2 full years, and this is where we at. This is deplorable, and it scares me. I am afraid as to what could happen or what might be happening. People are hurting in this country, and unfortunately, many upstairs do not understand that hurt.
McAlpine is no stranger to controversy, often refusing to toe the party line on several major issues, including the VAT hike and plans to lease space from a sitting cabinet minister. Despite this, the Pine Ridge MP said he is not worried about his future in politics.
My political future doesn't matter. The Bahamian people matter.
As sounds of blowhorns and shouts from the crowd echoed in Parliament, members of the opposition came out of those proceedings to show their support.
I hope they listen to the people. These people are crying. They want to be heard. They want to be listened. And they just want to be listened to. They want action to bring relief to the things that they are complaining about today.
The cost of electricity is really the new straw that's breaking the camel's back. But the government has made significant missteps with respect to levying 60% tax on the Bahamian people. They have laid out various gimmicks that the people in the country are not falling for.
Among those standing with protesters were former PLP MP V. Alfred Gray and Deputy Leader of the Democratic National Alliance, Arinthia Kumalathe.
Unemployment remains at double digits in New Providence. It is growing in Grand Bahama in the second city. It is growing in Abaco in the third city. And this administration has done nothing significant that has brought any sort of relief to the economic plight inside our nation.
When this march is over, they may think that the hurt and pain disappears. It will not disappear.
Of major concern to protesters is the rising cost of electricity. When our news team hounded the Works Minister for a response to their concerns, he said one would come at a later date.
I may say some things tonight.
So no comment as yet?
Not yet, not now.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, 13 days after Byron Ferguson's plane plunged into waters off Havana Beach, the mother and the wife of the missing pilot are speaking out on the agonizing search for him and their desperate need for closure. Since that fateful night, members of the Ferguson family have spoken to the press and on social media about what they feel were mishandled search efforts. Today, they sat down for an exclusive interview in studio with Jerome Sawyer.
My husband has the islands of the Bahamas tattooed all over his hands. This is how much he loved his country. And for you to just go out there and try to make it seem as if he was doing something indecent. No.
3 days after Byron Ferguson crash-landed in waters less than a mile off of western New Providence, his family went public, critical of the rescue efforts. Now, 2 weeks later, their efforts have yielded a larger, more visible response. But consider the tremendous public backlash over incorrect statements and seemingly insensitive search, rescue, and now recovery exercises.
I know he was a great person. I shouldn't say was. I know he is a great person. I know he's a great person. All the negative comments, I just feel as if to me, it's just so insensitive. Like, what, you only die for persons who have a flight plan?
It was clear from the interview with his brothers, wife, and mother that calling off the search so soon was the most painful part of the ordeal. Byron's mother, well-known ZNS personality Agnes Ferguson, described it as an ongoing nightmare.
To hear this man say the search is called off, and particularly what struck my heart was the smirk on his face when he said it. You know, it's like not sensitized at all, don't care about nobody. You know, I was hurt, terribly hurt by that. And I think things just has to change. That's the only problem I had, the only problem I still have. The position they took with just calling off the search, it shouldn't happen.
Byron's wife, Anya Ferguson, could not bring herself to go to the crash site that night. She talked about why.
I just couldn't do it. I knew when I married Byron who I was marrying. At the same time, just for my sanity and my peace of mind, knowing that I had a 9-month-old child home with me, I couldn't go. I couldn't go. I just was at that point saying, you know, he's a great pilot. I know whatever happened, he's gonna walk away from this, you know? So I was just waiting for them to call and said, you know, Anya just meet us at the hospital, we're on our way. I didn't. Nothing happened.
The family's frustration has been primarily directed towards the rescue efforts. With still no recovery of a body, there is still no closure for them.
If Byron's body is discovered, will that begin to bring you some closure?
It will. Definitely it will. It will.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
Thanks, Jerome. For the full and in-depth interview with Byron Ferguson's family, tune in to On the Record with Jerome Sawyer Thursday night at 8. Well, in Parliament today, members debated amendments to the banking legislation which will allow the government to claim money in dormant accounts. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis kicked off the debate on the Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Bill 2018 and the Central Bank of the Bahamas Bill 2018, which he said seeks to introduce necessary and important reforms to the dormant account regime in the Bahamas.
The proposed use of the funds will also redound, that is, contribute greatly to the benefit of all Bahamians as we seek to fortify our ability to respond to natural events that could destabilize the best of economic and fiscal plans.
According to the proposed amendments, the funds on the bank account must have been unclaimed for a total of 17 years before they are put under the control of the treasurer for the benefit of the Bahamian people. Now, as for how the money will be used, the Prime Minister says while the country has compelling needs in any number of areas, his administration will not view the money as a windfall for use in meeting normal budgetary operations.
We are advised by the central bank that based on these legislative proposals, the treasurer would receive an initial flow of at least $41.3 million assessed at the end of June 2018.
Still to come, why you should get rid of romaine lettuce in your fridge and be careful when cooking raw turkey. Plus, an F&M MP's company is evicted. That's coming up when our news returns.